We're going to talk about, this is a talk in two halves, right? We're going to start very practical, and then we're going to move to broader ideas. And I was thinking back to when I was at DLD last year, the penny for me had already dropped around ChatGPT. I'd used it, and I had already said to my team, we have to use this all the time. We have to learn how to use it. We have to put it into our everyday. What was can you remember your first experience of playing with ChatGPT?
Oh, yes. So when I tried it out first time, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so much better than Google search. And immediately afterwards, I called the head of my AI team and asked him, hey, have you experienced that? And next question was, have you seen that coming? Because we had worked with GPT-3 for a while, yeah, but he was surprised as well. And then I went home to my kids and said to them, think about your German class. Let's try that out. Can it write a better German poem? Or they had poems from the 19th century. Can it interpret it better? So that was my first experience with ChatGPT.
So were you encouraging your kids to get the robot to do their homework?
Actually, in a disciplined manner.
I think, you had a similar experience to me than when you were first using it, but what struck me is that your team had already been playing with GPT-3 for at least 2 years.
Yes.
Before then. And when you look at a business like Deutsche Telekom or Telecom, I guess you call it here, it's a really physical business, right? There are switching centers, data centers, there are big trenches, mini trenches, fiber ducts, cables, vans.
Yes.
It doesn't seem like the kind of place that you'd naturally throw artificial intelligence. So how have you been playing around with this sort of suite of technologies?
So we have been working with AI for a longer time, and in particular in our field of fiber build-out. We are building 2.5 million fiber lines per year, and we would not be able to do that without AI. Why? We are actually using these high-tech street cards, and they measure the surface of the ground and of the streets, and they take pictures from everything. And AI creates a passive fiber planning, which is then being used by the fiber planners. And what is then good for them? Instead of having to do lengthy appointments with the people from the municipalities and then go into the street and then plan where to put the great street cabinet, takes hours, sometimes weeks of preparation. It can be done digitally with the planners and the people from the municipality. And you wouldn't imagine we don't have enough planners in Germany, fiber planners, and across Europe. So leveraging AI is the only way of getting that practically done.
Yeah.
And now this has gone further because we have developed an employee bot or concierge. And the person who does the splicing in the streets,
so we see these guys, they're in the high-vis jackets and they're squatting down.
The blue-collar workers, they are in the streets, they are splicing, they are actually working with very physical work with the fiber. And now with the bots, they can ask the question, how do I need to connect the yellow cable with the blue cable? What do I do? Instead of having to call someone or go through 7,000 PDF type of documents, So therefore, even for very physical work, the interface you have plus the support in the planning actually helps.
I've seen the inside of some street-side cabinets in the UK, British Telecoms, BTs, and the moment you can take a photo of that and AI can know what to do with it, we've achieved AGI. I mean, that is spaghetti. Can I come back to the fiber planner though, because this is such a practical, example. So what we're doing is we are, in a way, combining the idea of Google Street Mapping cars with using AI for radiology scans, right? The kind of thing that we'd look at the retinal scan and detect things that human doctors can't detect. how good is it really? Is it really better than doing a physical human survey?
Oh, yes. It goes much faster. It's always the combination, I have to say,
Right.
between the human and the support you get for the humans. And I can actually tell you, moving a bit away from the pure physical infrastructure, we have per minute 19,000 attacks on our network. 19,000 attacks per minute.
Right.
So with automation and AI, you get a much better pattern recognition for anomalies and a real-time response on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the end, yeah, it's always the combination of the technologies we use there together with the human being.
So actually, but if we think about that, that issue with the attacks, so 19,000 attacks per minute, which is like a bit more than 1 million per hour, it's about 30 million attacks a day. So it starts to get to real numbers. It's like 1 billion attacks a year. What do you, I mean, how do you measure the amount of workload that the computational AI systems are actually, managing? I mean, is there some way of saying it's made your employees X times more productive or Y% more productive? Is there some way of actually speaking to the specific value that it provides?
Yes, talking about the impact, first of all, the question is, how many people do you indeed need to do something? When I was talking about the fiber planners, we didn't have the sheer number of people that would be required without that.
Right.
Another topic is actually we measure satisfaction of people, give feedback, our people, and customer satisfaction.
Sure.
Right? And on the cyber attacks, of course, we see how successful we are.
Right. Oh, you can't really talk about that. Yeah. How many came through? No,
Yes.
that was mean of me. I shouldn't have been that mean. But there's a really interesting point there, which is that you faced a skilled labor shortage, right, with the fiber planners. So does that? What's the sequencing there? Because one of the things that I hear about when I talk to bosses of large companies that have a similar profile to telecom, you've got a big consumer base, so you have a lot of customer contact center representatives as well. Where they want to start is, let's bring down the cost in the call center. Whereas the example that you've talked about, and we've gone into some detail previously, is in a kind of core part of the business. So what is the decision-making process that goes on amongst you and your peers that say, we should start to emphasize this thing? Because in some way, it's kind of easier, isn't it, to just automate a lot of customer service reps and
by the way,
costs.
large language models and play a big role in customer service as well. We've been working with a chatbot. By the way, I have to say that according to Computer Bild, we have the best chatbot in Germany. It's a really good chatbot. And the chatbot answers questions for customers who do not want to be in waiting loops. Yeah? You can approach it through the My Magenta app, and so far the chatbot answers all the structured and normal questions. Now we have connected it to a large language model, and then it starts to answer in natural language also questions that are not that frequently asked. For example, I have this tariff here in Germany. Can I import it for export it for 3 weeks to Turkey? Yeah. So therefore, what is relevant here is, again, customer satisfaction with the speed and the quality of answers you get as a customer in combination of people in the service organization who are supported by AI and the AI itself.
I mean, I think there is academic evidence from Stanford University showing how much more efficient customer contact reps are when they're supported by LLMs. And you've got the practical empirical evidence. But I just want to go back to that earlier question, which was about the decision-making that goes on around, because I think the fiber planning example is a really great example of a positive application, and I'm just curious about its heritage, right? How did it come about? How did you and finally decide to scale it out?
Yes, actually, the question we always ask ourselves is, what is the impact on what we call Net Promoter Score from customers? What is the impact on time we save? And what is also the impact on resource savings, right? And just maybe to give the last practical example, which has nothing to do with efficiency or customer satisfaction, it's an example about leveraging AI to solve a problem, again, which you couldn't solve otherwise. For example, in the United States, we are combining the pictures from satellites, and we use AI to predict and assess anomalies about temperature and smoke evolution in the potential danger of fire in forests, right? And I learned that it's very decisive whether you are at the point as the fire people, 20 or 30 minutes before it really spreads. So therefore, there are also applications where it's not just about getting higher volumes done or having a better net promoter score. It can be also around applications which eventually help to save lives.
I mean, it is interesting. We're going to have to move to the other part of the discussion, and afterwards I want to talk to you and understand how the competence is building within the organization as well.
I tell you what, just one thing. We actually, in spring this year, we decided to create an AI competence center for Deutsche Telekom and to bring together the experts from the group. And that AI competence center does 4 things. Number 1, build AI applications for what we consider the most impactful scenarios, like the chatbot enriched by LLM and the sales and services organization, or the employee bot, the concierge. Second, it deals with partnerships. For example, we are developing together with the South Koreans, with SK Telecom, large language models specifically for the telco industry to be capable to answer telco-specific questions more precisely. And then we have partnerships with all the others as well. Number 3, it also provides architectural and ethical guidelines. What's for me very important, in 2018 already, we formulated ethical guidelines how to deal with AI. And my favorite one is the consideration that in the end, there is always a human accountability. So no one can hide behind, the algorithm suggested this and that tariff. It's one of the super important ethical guidelines from 2018. And last but not least, we spent a lot of effort in adult education. So we identified 70,000 people across Europe for whom dealing with AI in one form or the other is actually very relevant. And so far, we have reached 40,000 of them with the first training programs, because I think in the end, this is about human beings. AI is like a bicycle for our brain, and you have to learn to bike, right? And in the end, it's the human capability that gets enhanced, and it's extremely important that we are smart creators instead of naive consumers. And that's the leitmotif we would have, by the way, I call this human-centered technology to get that going.
But it gets us to, I think, the other section of our discussion, which is really, a lot of these technologies are being developed in the US, and they're also being developed, I think, with a particular narrative around them. I did not have on, as someone who forecasts, I did not have on my forecasting card that national heads of state of really legitimate countries would be standing around saying, I'm worried about AI takeover, making humanity extinct. And there has been that narrative that certainly dominated a lot of the American media. How do you, how does that play out to you?
Honestly, I think this doomer scenario.
What's your P-doom, Claudia?
The doomer scenario, I think it's bullshit. And the purpose of that is to actually confuse the view on what is relevant in the present. Really. So I think AI challenges us as human beings to be, on the one hand, more humble, and on the other hand, more courageous and ambitious with regard to our own human capabilities. And what I learned, by the way, from anthropologists is what is a very strong human capability. The human baby at the age of 9 months, different than the baby of a chimpanzee, actually starts being in situations of common attention with their parents, with his or her parents, or a strong contact person. Which means a 9-month-old baby realizes that what she or he feels and experiences is the same as his or her parents do. Humans learn in empathetic connections with other human beings, and they give things a purpose and a meaning.
Yeah.
Machine intelligence is very different. It gets fed in my data,
Yeah.
and calculates the next most likely stuff. So I believe, and the intention we have, the ability to sense is important. Now, by the way, that is a strength of human beings. To be honest, it's also our weakness. Yeah, because it's actually also the way why we have biases when working in our own shoes or in the shoes of people who are closer to us and less comfortable in doing this otherwise.
You know, I think this insight that a lot of the discussion, the dialogue helps to confuse. And I liken it to, I was a teenage boy once, and I didn't want to clean my room, and it was much easier not to clean my room if I told my mum, I'm working on something really important, a really important school project. I am working to stop humanity being destroyed by the very technology I am building, so I cannot clean my room.
Absolutely, and Azeem, another one of these pseudo-religious ideologies is long-termism. By the way, long-termism, assuming in the extreme, it's okay to maybe kill 100 people with the electrical vehicle today to save 1,000 in the future. Really, this is a bit to the extreme. Yeah. By the way, that concept did exist before. It were the indulgence letters of the Catholic Church in the medieval ages. Yeah, paradise is coming, but you have to suffer on earth. This is a pseudo-religious ideology from my point of view. Sorry, that's my personal opinion about it. I think it just confuses us from looking at the opportunities of AI today while being realistic about the dangers. My view is we should embrace AI as an opportunity while not being naive about the downsides, like deep fake or polarization of societies, while not being naive. And taking such a look, which is, what is it? Dare to know.
Right.
The motto here.
Yeah.
Dare to know. Sapere aude. That was Immanuel Kant, who said, have the courage to use your brain, but to use your brain in a critical and empathetic manner. That's actually, I think, the avenue we to go, and we need to really abstain from anything which is confusing and prevents us from thinking in the present.
And that word schism. We're going to go to, I'm going to say one thing and I'm going to ask you one more question because we're out of time. But that word schism, I think, is really, really important because there is a schism in the narrative and the dialogue and the discussion that has started to feel a little bit religious. So one of my hopes for this year is that we're able to move the technology, the discussion, the risk discussion, the deployment, the welfare discussion into a space that is much more civil, with much more common language, much less grandstanding. But I would turn to you and say, what would you hope for in AI in 2024?
So, by the way, I will say this in English and in German. Europe needs to be the continent of AI chances. Deutschland muss eine KI-Chancenrepublik werden. We need to move away from German Angst to German Zuversicht. And where is the opportunity? Where's the opportunity? What I would hope for. Number one, as I said, I think more and more companies are realizing that we can use, really, even as physical companies, practically leverage AI to deal, for instance, with the demographic challenges I was giving a practical example of. Number two, while of course we need to radically reduce the electricity consumption and move to renewable energies, I'm convinced that without AI, it will be extremely difficult to address mass extinction and climate neutrality, right? And number 3, just imagine we would have experienced the corona pandemic a couple of decades before. It would be like in Albert Camus' La Peste and worse across the entire world. So I also foresee progress coming and on healthcare. So I do hope that we have more people who get inspired by the idea of smart creation instead of dumb consumption and call for German Zuversicht. Yeah, this is the German Angst.
You can do it for the German audience. Yeah,
but
we're in Germany.
For the continent here, for Europe, I would say a continent of AI chances, but not like naive bullshit or doomerism scenarios. That would be my hope.
It's an amazingly ambitious hope to smart creation, I think. Thank you, Claudia.
You're welcome.